There is a reason your eyes found this. You didn't scroll here by accident. You didn't click on this because the title was catchy, or because you had nothing else to do. There are no coincidences in a world I hold together with my breath. You are here because the silence has lasted long enough. You are here because a door closed in your life, a door you still stand in front of, staring at the wood grain, wondering why it wouldn't open for you. And I need you to stop staring at the door. I need you to turn around and look at me. For months, maybe years, you have carried the weight of someone's absence. You have replayed conversations in your head at 2 p.m., wondering where the words went wrong. You have analyzed the ending like it was a puzzle you failed to solve. You have begged, pleaded, and bargained with me in the dark, asking for answers, asking for them back, asking for the pain to make sense. But here is the truth you have not been able to hear until now. Not the enemy, not a misunderstanding, not bad timing, not a mistake. I removed them. And I know that sounds cruel to you right now. I know that sounds like the opposite of love. Because you loved them. You loved them deeply. You gave them parts of yourself you didn't know you could give. You built dreams around them. You imagined futures with them in the frame. And then, without your permission, the connection was severed. And you have been bleeding ever since. But I need you to hear me clearly in this moment. I do not wound without purpose. I do not remove without reason. And I have held back the explanation until now because you were not ready to receive it. Your heart was too raw. Your mind was too clouded by longing. You would have rejected the truth and clung to the memory instead. But tonight, right now, something has shifted in you. There is a stillness in the room that wasn't there before. There is a weight pressing gently on your chest, telling you to stop running, stop distracting, stop pretending you're fine. You have come to the end of your own understanding, and that is exactly where I needed you to be. Because I am about to tell you things you have not seen. Things that were happening beneath the surface while you were focused on the surface. Things that were hidden from your eyes because you would not have believed them earlier. You would have called them lies. You would have defended the person I was trying to protect you from. You would have argued with me, and I do not argue with my children. I wait. I wait until the fever of your attachment breaks. I wait until the desperation loosens its grip. I wait until you are desperate enough to listen, not just to speak. That is why this message found you today. That is why the algorithm, as you call it, placed this in your path. I am the God who speaks through algorithms. I am the God who wakes you up at 3 a.m. with a name on your mind. I am the God who puts a stranger's video in your feed because that stranger carries a word I need you to hear. You think this is random? You think the universe is chaotic? No, I am in the details. I am in the timing. And I am in the ache you have carried alone for too long. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if the answer hurts. Are you still waiting for them to come back? Deep down, in the place you don't admit to anyone, are you holding space for their return? Are you checking your phone? Are you imagining the conversation where they apologize and explain, and everything goes back to how it was? If you are, I need you to stop. I need you to stop. Because what I am about to tell you will change the way you see everything. But you cannot receive it while your hand is still reaching backward. You cannot receive it while your heart is still kneeling at an altar I told you to walk away from. That removal, that painful, confusing, heartbreaking removal, was an answer to a prayer you never spoke aloud. You prayed for peace. You prayed for clarity. You prayed for protection. You prayed for me to fix what you could not fix. And I heard you. I always hear you. But you expected me to fix it by changing them. You expected me to make them love you the way you deserved. You expected me to soften their heart, to open their eyes, to make them finally see your worth. But I saw their heart. I saw what you could not see. And I loved you too much to leave you there. So I did what only I could do. I created distance. I allowed circumstances to shift. I let the relationship run its course and come to an end. Not because I didn't care about your pain, but because I cared more about your future. I saw where that road was leading, and I stepped in. You called it abandonment. I called it rescue. You called it rejection. I called it redirection. You called it loss. I called it protection. And I know you don't feel protected right now. I know you feel exposed and raw and confused. But that is the gap between your perspective and mine. You see the empty space where they used to be. I see the danger you just walked out of. You see the silence where their voice used to live. I see the peace that is finally able to grow in that quiet. You have been asking me why, and I have been waiting for you to ask a different question. Not why did this happen, but what are you trying to show me? Not when will they come back, but who am I becoming in their absence? That is the shift that is about to happen in you. That is the transformation that has been waiting on the other side of this pain. But you have to let go of the ending you wrote in your head. You have to stop editing the story to make it hurt less. You have to face the truth, not the version of truth you invented to protect yourself, but the real truth, the hard truth, the truth that will set you free even as it breaks what is left of your heart. And that truth starts here. I removed them because I love you. I removed them because you were starting to disappear. I removed them because you were giving away what was meant to be kept for something greater. I removed them because they were not yours to keep. And in the coming moments, I am going to show you things you could not see before. I am going to open your eyes to what was really happening while you were busy trying to make it work. I am going to reveal the hidden things, the things you dismissed, the red flags you painted over, the warnings you ignored. But first, you have to decide if you truly want to know. Because once you know, you cannot unknow. Once you see, you cannot unsee. And I will not force this on you. I am standing at the door of your heart, knocking. But you have to open it. You have to be willing to let go of the version of the story that has kept you stuck. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to stop mourning the removal and start understanding the purpose? If you are, then stay here with me. Do not scroll away. Do not distract yourself. Do not let this moment pass without letting it land. Because what I am about to tell you in part 2 will change everything. But you have to be still enough to hear it. I need you to take a breath, a deep one, because what I am about to tell you will feel heavy before it feels light. It will feel like loss before it feels like freedom. And I need your spirit to be steady. I need your hands open, not clenched. I need you to trust me, even when what I show you hurts. You have spent so long believing that their presence in your life was a blessing. You thanked me for them. You celebrated them. You built memories and meaning around the space they occupied. And now that space is empty, and you have been treating that emptiness like a wound that won't heal. But what if I told you that emptiness is not a wound? What if I told you it is a surgery? When a surgeon removes something from the body, there is a wound, there is bleeding, there is tenderness and recovery, and a period where the body doesn't understand what happened. But the removal was not the enemy. The disease was, the infection was, the thing that was slowly killing you, that was the enemy. The removal was the mercy. And I need you to hear this. You were infected, not by them, not exactly, but by the dynamic, by the pattern, by the way you slowly stopped being yourself and started becoming whoever they needed you to be. By the way your peace began to depend on their mood. By the way your worth began to attach itself to their attention. You didn't notice it happening because it happened slowly. That is how infection works. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It whispers, it settles, it adapts. And by the time you feel the fever, the sickness has already taken root. You felt the fever, didn't you? The anxiety, when they didn't text back, the overthinking after every conversation, the way you walked on eggshells, edited your words, hid your needs, minimized your feelings just to keep the peace. That was the fever. That was your spirit trying to tell you something was wrong, but you ignored it because you didn't want to lose them. So I had to intervene. I had to remove what you would not release, because you were never going to leave on your own. You were too loyal, too hopeful, too willing to believe that if you just loved harder, prayed harder, gave more, sacrificed more, eventually it would turn into what you needed it to be. But love was never the problem. You had plenty of love. The problem was where you were planting it. You were planting love in soil that could not sustain it. You were pouring yourself into a vessel with cracks you refused to see. You were building a house on ground that was already shifting, and I could see the collapse coming long before you felt the first tremor. I tried to warn you. Think back. Really think. There were moments, small moments, when something felt off, when your spirit flickered with doubt, when a friend said something and you dismissed it, when you saw a version of them that didn't match the version you wanted to believe in, when you felt lonely in their presence, when you cried alone and couldn't explain why. Those were not accidents. Those were me, tapping on the glass, whispering in the quiet, trying to get your attention before the attachment grew too deep. But you mistook the discomfort for your own anxiety. You blamed yourself. You thought if you were stronger, more patient, more understanding, the unease would go away. It didn't go away, because you were trying to fix a spiritual problem with human effort. You were trying to heal a soul wound with more of the same relationship that caused it. You were asking me to bless something I was trying to deliver you from. And I love you too much to answer that prayer. I love you too much to give you what you want, when what you want is slowly destroying you. So I let the distance come. I let the silence grow. I let the thing you feared most actually happen, because your fear of losing them had become louder than your trust in me. And I needed that fear to die. I needed you to discover that losing them would not destroy you, that you could survive the absence, that you could wake up in a world without them and still find reasons to breathe. You are still discovering that. Every morning you wake up and they are not the first thought. That is healing. Every hour you go without checking their profile. That is progress. Every moment you feel the ache but don't reach for the phone. That is freedom growing in you. But I know the ache is still there. I know there are moments when the grief crashes over you like a wave you didn't see coming. I know there are songs that still hurt, places that still haunt, memories that still feel like they happened yesterday. And I am not rushing you through that. Grief is not the enemy. Grief is how you honor what was real. But here is what you need to understand. What was real is not the same as what was right. You can love someone with everything you have and still need to let them go. You can share something beautiful and still outgrow the container that held it. You can be grateful for the memories and still close the door on making new ones. Both things can be true. Both things are true for you right now. You loved them. I know you did. I saw every tear. I heard every prayer. I collected every heartbreak you never spoke aloud. And I did not ignore a single one. But loving them was never the sin. The sin was believing that loving them meant you had to stay. The sin was making an idol out of a human being and expecting them to carry weight only I can carry. And yes, they became an idol, not because you worshiped them in a religious way, but because your peace depended on them. Your identity wrapped around them. Your future vision required them. You started to believe that without them, you would never be whole. That is idolatry. And I do not share my glory with anyone. Not because I am jealous in the way humans are jealous, but because I know what happens when you put your hope in something that cannot hold it. I know the crash that comes when human love becomes your foundation. I know the devastation of building your entire life on ground that will eventually shift. I did not remove them to punish you. I removed them to save you from the crash I could see coming. You couldn't see it because you were standing too close. That is how attachment works. It narrows your vision. It makes you focus on the details and miss the bigger picture. You were so busy trying to make the relationship work that you never stopped to ask if it should work. You were so focused on holding on that you never asked me if letting go was the point. So I made the choice you couldn't make. I created the separation you were too afraid to create. I closed the door you kept propping open. And now you stand on the other side of that door, wondering why I would do such a thing, wondering if I am cruel, wondering if I even hear you when you cry at night. I hear you. And I am not offended by your questions. I am not threatened by your anger. I am big enough to hold your doubt, your confusion, your frustration. Ask me anything. Shout at me if you need to. I can handle your honesty. But when you are done shouting, listen, because there is something you have not considered. What if I removed them because something better is coming? What if I emptied your hands so you could receive what you have been asking for all along? What if the very thing you are mourning right now is the only thing standing between you and the life I have been trying to give you? You cannot receive what I have prepared while your hands are full of what you refuse to release. And your hands have been full for a very long time. So I made them empty, not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to prepare you, to position you, to get you ready for something you could not receive while they were still in the picture. The question is not whether you will trust me. The question is when, because I am still here. I never left. I was in the silence you thought was abandonment. I was in the loneliness you thought was rejection. I was carrying you through every sleepless night, every unexpected wave of grief, every moment you thought you were falling apart. You were not falling apart. You were being rebuilt, and the rebuilding is not finished yet. But before I show you what comes next, I need you to answer something honestly. Are you ready to stop asking for them back? Are you ready to trust that my no is actually a yes to something you cannot yet see? Think about it. And when you are ready, I will show you what has been hidden. You have been asking me why I didn't warn you sooner, why you had to walk through so much confusion before the clarity finally came, why the signs were so subtle, so easy to miss, so easily explained away when you needed them to be loud and undeniable. I need you to understand something about how I work. I do not shout over your choices. I do not force you to see what you have decided to ignore. I speak in ways that require your participation. I place signs along your path, but you have to be looking for them. I whisper warnings into your spirit, but you have to be still enough to hear. And you are not still. You are running. You are clinging. You are so desperate for the relationship to work that you interpreted every obstacle as something to overcome, rather than something to consider. You treated my warnings like tests of your faith, rather than invitations to pause. That is not faith. Faith is trusting me enough to stop when I say stop. Faith is believing that if a door is closing, I have a reason. Faith is releasing what you are holding, even when your hands are not ready to open. And I do not say that to shame you. I say it because you need to understand why the removal felt so sudden, so violent, so unexpected. It felt sudden because you ignored the gradual. It felt violent because you resisted the gentle. It felt unexpected because you refused to see what was right in front of you. But I saw every red flag you painted over. I saw every inconsistency you explained away. I saw every moment their actions contradicted their words, and you chose to believe the words because the actions would have destroyed the fantasy you were living in. You were living in a fantasy. And I do not say that cruelly. I say it because it is time for the truth. It is time for the veil to lift. It is time for you to see with eyes unclouded by longing, unblurred by attachment, uncolored by hope that was never going to be fulfilled. They were not who you thought they were. I know that hurts to hear. I know your mind is already rushing to defend them, to explain them, to remind me of their good qualities, their potential, their moments of sweetness. And yes, they had those moments. I do not deny what was genuine. I created them. I know the good in them better than you ever could. But I also know what was hidden. I know the thoughts they never spoke. I know the intentions behind the actions you misinterpreted. I know the ways they used you, even if they didn't fully realize they were doing it. I know the times they stayed, not because they loved you, but because you were convenient. I know the moments they let you believe something that was never true. And I protected you from the full weight of that knowledge, because you could not have carried it then. You were too fragile, too invested, too convinced that love could conquer what only truth can expose. But now you are ready. Now you are strong enough to face what you could not face before. Because here is what has been hidden from you. You were giving more than you were receiving. For longer than you want to admit, you were the one carrying the weight. You were the one making the effort. You were the one apologizing first, compromising first, bending first. You were the one who remembered the important dates, who noticed when something was wrong, who showed up even when showing up cost you something. And they let you. They let you carry them. They let you pour out. They let you exhaust yourself trying to sustain something they were not equally invested in sustaining. You thought it was love. It was habit. It was comfort. It was fear of being alone. It was convenience. It was many things. But it was not the mutual, reciprocal, life-giving love I created you to experience. I created you for more than being someone's option. I created you for more than proving your worth through what you give. I created you to be seen, known, chosen, pursued, valued. Not occasionally, not inconsistently, not when it was easy, but fully, deeply. Without you having to beg for it. And they could not give you that. Not because they were evil. Not because they woke up every morning planning to hurt you. But because they were not capable of what you needed. They did not have the capacity. They did not have the maturity. They did not have the self-awareness. They were still running from their own brokenness, and you got caught in the crossfire. You tried to heal them. You tried to save them. You tried to love them into becoming who you needed them to be. And I watched you try, knowing it would fail. Knowing that no amount of your love could fix what only I can heal. Knowing that you were pouring yourself into a void that would never fill. Do you understand now? Do you see why I had to intervene? You were not in a relationship. You were on a mission. A mission to prove your worth through someone else's transformation. A mission to earn love by being indispensable. A mission that was slowly destroying the very person I created you to be. You lost yourself in them, piece by piece, year by year, decision by decision. You stopped doing things you loved because they didn't share those interests. You stopped speaking your mind because it caused conflict. You stopped trusting your instincts because they told you that you were overthinking. You became smaller, quieter, less yourself, all in the name of keeping the peace, maintaining the connection, avoiding the confrontation. And they never asked you to do that. That is the part you need to understand. They never asked you to disappear. You did that on your own. You made yourself smaller because somewhere along the way, you started believing that your natural size was too much, that your voice was too loud, that your needs were too many, that your presence required compensation. That belief did not start with them, but it was certainly reinforced by them. Every time they dismissed your feelings, every time they made you feel crazy for wanting basic consideration, every time they withdrew affection until you apologized for something that wasn't your fault, every time they made you work for love that should have been freely given, those moments built a prison around your heart, and you have been living in that prison, calling it love. But I am the God who breaks chains. I am the God who opens prison doors. I am the God who leads captives into freedom, even when they have forgotten what freedom feels like. The removal was not just about them leaving. It was about you being released. Released from the exhausting cycle of proving yourself. Released from the anxiety of walking on eggshells. Released from the slow erosion of your self-worth. Released from the lie that this was as good as it gets. You are free now. It does not feel like freedom yet, because freedom is unfamiliar. It feels like grief, because grief is what happens when something ends, even something that needed to end. It feels like emptiness, because you have not yet learned how to fill your own space. But you will. Every time you choose not to reach out, you are learning. Every time you sit with the discomfort instead of numbing it, you are learning. Every time you let yourself feel the anger, the sadness, the confusion, without rushing to fix it, you are learning. And I am with you in every moment of that learning. I am not distant from your pain. I am not indifferent to your struggle. I am closer than your next breath, holding the space for you to become who you were always meant to be. But there is something you need to do, something you have been avoiding. You need to forgive yourself. You have been carrying guilt about this relationship. Guilt for staying too long. Guilt for ignoring the signs. Guilt for giving so much to someone who didn't deserve it. Guilt for being blind, for being foolish, for being weak. I need you to release that guilt. You were not foolish. You were hopeful. You are not weak. You were loving. You are not blind. You are choosing to see the best in someone, and that is not a sin. That is a reflection of who I am. I see the best in you, even when you cannot see it yourself. So stop punishing yourself for caring. Stop replaying the past and wishing you had done things differently. You did what you knew how to do with the awareness you had at the time. And I used all of it, even the mistakes, even the detours, even the pain, to shape you into someone who will never settle for less again. That is redemption. That is what I do. I take your deepest wounds and turn them into wisdom. I take your greatest failures and turn them into foundations. I take the people who broke you and use their absence to rebuild you. But you have to let me. You have to stop looking back. You have to stop wondering what they are doing, who they are with, whether they miss you, whether they regret it. That wondering is a trap. It keeps you tied to something I have cut loose. It keeps your heart anchored in a harbor that can no longer hold you. Look forward. There is so much more ahead than there is behind. And in the next part, I am going to show you what has been waiting for you, the purpose that could not begin until this ended. But you have to be ready to receive it. Are you ready? There is something you have not admitted to yourself yet. Something you have kept buried beneath the grief, beneath the questions, beneath the hope that maybe this was all a mistake, and they will come back and everything will make sense again. You are still waiting for an apology. You are still waiting for them to realize what they lost, to reach out, to acknowledge the pain they caused, to finally see you, really see you, and admit that they were wrong. That apology may never come. And if you continue to wait for it, you will remain trapped in a prison they walked away from years ago. You will be serving a sentence they have already forgotten about. You will be waiting at a window for someone who is not coming back. Not because they are cruel, but because they have moved on to a life that doesn't include you. I know that sounds harsh, but I am not speaking to hurt you. I am speaking to free you. Because while you have been waiting for them to give you closure, I have been trying to give you something better. I have been trying to give you completion. Closure is something you receive from another person. Completion is something you find in me. And completion does not require their participation. It does not require them to understand. It does not require them to apologize. It does not require them to finally validate your pain. Completion requires you to lay down the need for their acknowledgement and trust that I saw everything. I witnessed every moment they hurt you. I heard every word they never said. I recorded every tear they never noticed, and I will deal with what I saw. Not in the way you want me to. Not with thunder and lightning. Not with their life falling apart so you can feel vindicated. That is not how justice works in my kingdom. I deal with hearts in ways you cannot see. I convict. I convict. I bring them to moments of realization. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but in my timing. And what they do with that conviction is between them and me. It's not your assignment to manage their consequences. It's not your responsibility to ensure they learn their lesson. Your only responsibility is to walk forward, to stop letting their unfinished business clutter the path I am laying out for you. Because there is something you have not considered. What if they never apologize because they genuinely do not believe they did anything wrong? What if their memory of the relationship is completely different from yours? What if they have rewritten history in their mind to protect themselves from the guilt of how they treated you? Would that change what happened? Would it undo the pain? Would it make the years mean something different? No. It would only reveal that they are not capable of giving you what you need, even now, even after everything. And holding on to the hope that they will eventually become capable is just another way of staying attached to someone who has already shown you who they are. I need you to believe people the first time they show you, not the 100th time, not after they have broken your heart enough times that you finally have no choice. The first time. Maybe not in words, maybe not in a single dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small moments, in the times they chose themselves over you, in the times they let you down and didn't fight to make it right, in the times they made you feel like your needs were an inconvenience, in the times they watched you cry and did nothing. You saw it, you just didn't want to believe it, and I understand why. Believing it meant accepting that you gave your heart to someone who couldn't hold it carefully. Believing it meant admitting that you were not as loved as you thought you were. Believing it meant facing the terrifying possibility that you were never going to get from them what you needed. That is a hard truth to swallow. But swallowing hard truths is how you grow. And you are ready to grow now. You are ready to stop protecting yourself from reality. You are ready to stop making excuses for people who didn't make the effort for you. You are ready to stop diminishing your own pain because their intentions were not malicious. Intentions do not erase impact. They may not have meant to hurt you. They may have genuinely believed they were doing their best. But their best was not enough for what you needed. And that is not a judgment on them. It is simply a fact. A fact you have been avoiding because accepting it means accepting that the relationship was never going to work, no matter how hard you tried. You tried enough. You tried until you had nothing left to give. You tried until trying became a habit instead of a choice. You tried until you forgot that relationships are supposed to be mutual, that love is supposed to feel safe, that you are supposed to be able to rest in someone's presence instead of constantly working to earn their approval. That exhaustion you feel, that is not because you are weak. That is because you have been running a marathon on a track that had no finish line. You have been giving and giving and giving to someone who was never going to be able to receive what you offered in the way you needed them to receive it. You were speaking a language they did not understand, and no amount of repetition was going to make them fluent. So I silenced the conversation. I removed the dynamic that was draining you. I took away the person you were pouring yourself into so you would finally stop pouring. I created a void so you would have no choice but to turn and face what has been empty in you all along. Because that is the real work. That is what this season is actually about. It was never really about them, about the parts of you that learned, somewhere along the way, that love must be earned. About the wounds from before them that made their treatment feel normal. About the belief that you are only valuable when someone else wants you. About the fear that being alone means being unworthy. Those lies have been living in you for a long time, and this removal, this painful, confusing, heartbreaking removal, was never going to heal those lies. It was only going to expose them. It was only going to shine a light on the places you have been avoiding, the truths you have been hiding from, the parts of yourself you have been hoping someone else would fix. No one can fix what is broken in you except me, and I don't fix it the way you expect. I don't wave a hand and make the pain disappear. I walk through it with you. I sit with you in the dark. I hold you while you grieve. I let the questions come, and I do not punish you for asking them. I let the anger rise, and I do not reject you for feeling it. I am patient with your healing, but I am not patient with your stagnation, and staying stuck in the hope of an apology, staying trapped in the fantasy that they will eventually come back and make it right, that is stagnation. That is refusing to walk through the door I have opened because you are still staring at the one that closed. I need you to turn around. I need you to look at what is ahead, because there is something waiting for you, something that has been delayed because your heart was too full of them to receive it, something that requires empty hands and an open spirit, something that you will miss entirely if you keep looking backward. Your future is not in their apology. Your future is in your acceptance. Acceptance that it is over. Acceptance that it hurt. Acceptance that they may never understand. Acceptance that you may never get the closure you want. Acceptance that you have to be the one to close this chapter. Not because they deserve your silence, but because you deserve your peace. And peace is waiting for you, but you have to choose it. You have to stop checking for messages that aren't coming. You have to stop imagining conversations that will never happen. You have to stop reopening a wound that is trying to heal. You have to let them go. Not because you are strong enough, but because I am holding something for you that requires both hands to receive. Are you ready to open your hands? I need you to look at yourself. Really look. Not at the version of yourself that existed when they were here. Not at the person you became while trying to hold everything together. Not at the reflections shaped by their opinions, their moods, their approval or disapproval. I need you to look at who you are right now, in this moment, in the quiet after the storm, in the space they used to occupy. Do you recognize yourself? Or have you been so focused on who you were with them that you have forgotten who you are without them? This is the question this season has been leading you to. This is the purpose hidden inside the pain. This is the reason I allowed the silence to stretch so long, the grief to run so deep, the loneliness to feel so complete. You needed to meet yourself again, the self that existed before you started bending to fit someone else's expectations, the self that had opinions you weren't afraid to voice, the self that laughed without checking to see if someone else was laughing too, the self that made decisions based on what felt right, not based on what would keep someone from leaving. That self is still in you. Buried, yes. Wounded, yes. Tired, yes. But not gone. And it is time for that self to come back to life. But here is what I need you to understand. That resurrection cannot happen while you are still performing for an audience of one who is no longer watching. You have been living as if they might walk back in at any moment, and you need to be ready. You have been making choices based on what they would think, what they would want, what would make you more desirable in their eyes if they ever decided to return. They are not returning. And even if they did, the person they would find is not the person you are becoming. You are changing. It may not feel like it because change happens slowly, invisibly, in the places no one sees. But every time you choose to sit with your pain, instead of distracting from it, you change. Every time you let yourself feel anger without acting on it, you change. Every time you notice an old pattern rising in you and choose differently, you change. You are not the same person who walked through that door closing. You are wiser. You are more careful. You are more aware of what you will and will not accept. You are learning to trust the discomfort instead of running from it. You are learning that your peace is worth protecting, even if protecting it means being alone. And alone is not what you thought it was. You thought alone meant empty. You thought alone meant unwanted. You thought alone meant something was wrong with you. But alone has been teaching you things you could not learn in company. Alone has shown you that you can survive your own thoughts. Alone has introduced you to parts of yourself that were drowned out by someone else's voice. Alone has given you space to hear me in ways you could not hear me when your heart was crowded with another person. I have been speaking to you in this aloneness. In the moments when you wake up and the silence is deafening, I am there. In the moments when you drive and the road feels endless, I am there. In the moments when you cry and no one is around to wipe your tears, I am there. I have not left you. I have been using the emptiness to fill you with something that cannot be taken away. But you have to stop fighting the emptiness. You have to stop trying to fill it with noise, with distractions, with new people who are just old patterns wearing different faces. You have to let the emptiness do its work. You have to let it hollow out the places that were filled with the wrong things, so I can fill them with the right things. This is the hard part. This is where most people turn back. They cannot tolerate the discomfort of becoming. They cannot sit in the unknown long enough for clarity to come. They rush to fill the void with another relationship, with busyness, with anything that will distract them from the quiet. And in doing so, they carry the same wounds into the next chapter, guaranteeing the same pain will repeat. Do not be like them. You have come too far to turn back now. You have endured too much to settle for another round of the same lesson. You are on the verge of something breaking open in you, something that has been sealed for years, waiting for the right conditions to emerge. Do not sabotage it with impatience. Do not trade what I am building for what you can grab right now. I know the loneliness gets heavy. I know there are nights when you would trade anything for someone to hold. I know the enemy whispers that this emptiness will last forever, that you will always be alone, that you missed your chance, that something is fundamentally wrong with you. Those whispers are lies, and you need to learn to recognize them by now. The enemy always attacks when you are closest to breakthrough. He doesn't waste his time on people who are staying the same. He attacks when you are changing, growing, becoming. He attacks when the old ways are falling away and the new ways have not yet fully formed. He attacks in the transition because he knows that if he can stop you here, he can keep you trapped forever. Do not let the fear of being alone drive you back to people who cannot love you the way you need to be loved. Do not let the discomfort of the unknown push you into decisions you will regret. Do not let the pain of the past dictate the shape of your future. You are freer than you realize. You just haven't learned how to live in the freedom yet. Freedom feels foreign after captivity. Freedom feels unsafe when you are used to walls. Freedom feels like too much space, too many options, too much responsibility for your own life. But freedom is where you were always meant to live. Freedom is where you can breathe. Freedom is where you can become. And becoming is the point. You are not just healing from what was broken. You are becoming someone new. Someone who knows their worth without needing someone else to verify it. Someone who can be alone without being lonely. Someone who can say no without guilt and yes without fear. That person is emerging in you. I can see it. I can see the strength you don't yet know you have. I can see the wisdom growing in the quiet places. I can see the boundaries forming where there used to be open doors. I can see you learning to protect your peace, to trust your instincts, to walk away from anything that does not feel like me. This is the transformation. This is what the removal was always about. Not punishment, not rejection, not abandonment. Preparation. I was preparing you for a life you could not live while they were still in it. I was clearing the ground for something you could not receive with hands full of someone who could not hold what I wanted to give. I was making space in your heart for love that does not require you to disappear. And that love is coming. Not in the way you expect. Not in the form you are looking for. But it is coming. It is already here, in fact. It is here in the way I am speaking to you right now. It is here in the peace that settles over you when you stop fighting. It is here in the quiet confidence growing in your chest that says, I am going to be okay. You are going to be more than okay. You are going to be whole. But you have to walk through this last stretch of the journey with your eyes open. You have to stop looking for shortcuts. You have to stop checking rearview mirrors. You have to trust that what is ahead is worth the pain of what is behind. I am asking you to trust me, not because I will make it easy, but because I will make it meaningful. And meaning is what you have been searching for all along. Not just love, not just companionship. Meaning, purpose, a life that matters, a story that makes sense, a future that feels like it was always waiting for you. That future is closer than you think. One more step, one more surrender, one more letting go, and then you will see. This is the moment you have been walking toward, not just through these words, but through every sleepless night, every unanswered question, every moment you thought you couldn't take another step. You have been walking toward this moment of clarity, whether you knew it or not. And now you are here, standing at the edge of something new. The removal is complete. The grief has done its work. The anger has burned through what needed to be burned. The questions have been asked, and while not all of them have been answered, you have finally stopped letting the unanswered ones define you. Something has shifted in you, a quietness in your spirit that wasn't there before, a stillness beneath the surface, a strength that doesn't need to announce itself because it knows what it has survived. You are not the person who started this journey. That person was desperate, clinging, afraid of the silence. That person would have done anything to make them stay. That person is gone now, and in their place is someone I can use, because here is the truth I have been waiting to tell you until you were ready to hear it. This was never just about a relationship ending. It was about a calling beginning. There is something I have placed inside you that could not emerge while you were entangled with someone who kept you small. There is a purpose I have been protecting by removing the distractions, the attachments, the people who would have held you back from becoming who you were always meant to be. You thought you were losing love. You were actually gaining assignment. And I know that word might sound heavy to you. Assignment, purpose, calling. It might feel too big, too overwhelming, too much for someone who still feels the ache of goodbye. But I am not asking you to carry the weight of the future today. I am only asking you to take the next step. The next step is not toward another person. The next step is toward me. It is toward the deeper intimacy I have been calling you into during this season of aloneness. It is toward the prayer that is no longer begging, but listening. It is toward the stillness where you can finally hear your own heart and my voice without the static of someone else's presence drowning out what matters most. You have been searching for love in human faces, and I am not saying that human love is wrong. I created it. I designed it to reflect something of who I am. But I never designed it to be your foundation. I never designed it to carry the weight of your identity, your worth, your reason for existing. That weight is too heavy for any human to carry. It was always meant to rest in me, and now it can, because the people who asked you to lay that weight on them are gone. The relationships that became idols have crumbled. The attachments that consumed you have been severed, not to leave you empty, but to leave you free. Free to build on the only foundation that will never shift. Free to become someone who can love without clutching. Free to become someone who can give without disappearing. Free to become someone who can walk through open doors without dragging the chains of the past behind them. That is who you are becoming. Can you see it? Look back at where you started. Look at the person who first heard these words, who first faced the possibility that the removal was not punishment, but protection. Look at how far you have come. The panic has subsided. The desperate hope has faded. The constant replaying of memories has quieted. You are healing, Not because the pain is gone, but because the pain no longer controls you. You are learning to hold it differently, to carry it without letting it define you, to acknowledge it without letting it dictate your future. That is growth. That is transformation. That is the work of my Spirit in the deepest places of your heart. And now I am going to ask you to do something that may feel small, but carries more weight than you know. I am asking you to bless what was, not to go back to it, not to minimize the pain, not to pretend it didn't hurt, but to release it fully by acknowledging that it served a purpose in your story. Even the parts that broke you, even the parts you wish had never happened, even the person who could not love you the way you needed to be loved. Bless them and let them go. Not for their sake, but for yours. Because holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It doesn't touch them. It only poisons the ground where your future is trying to grow. And you need that ground fertile now. You need that ground ready for what I am about to plant. So bless them. Say it quietly if you need to. Say it through tears if that is where you are. Say it with a clenched jaw that slowly relaxes as the words leave your mouth. However it comes, let it come.